everybody, welcome to my channel. How's everybody doing today? I'm doing pretty good. So I am going to do another mukbang, and it is going to be French bread pizza. Get you a close-up of that, and it looks so delicious. It actually was just a cheese one, but I had some turkey pepperoni and I added it to the top of that to add a little bit of that. And somebody requested fruit, so I got me some fruit here. It's melons, watermelon, cantaloupe, and honeydew. So take a bite. I love watermelon, so good. Probably my favorite is watermelon out of here, but I like all the melons. Nice big cantaloupe. Please ignore my hair. I just got out of the shower, so it's still a little bit wet. But when I asked you guys, you told me you wanted all my stories, good, bad, whatever. So today I'm going to tell you, I guess more of a sad story. It's a story about the day that I almost lost my son. It did happen probably about 7 years ago. So even though it's still hard to talk about it, it does make it, after years, a little bit easier to talk about it, so I don't think I'll cry. I hope not. But I'm just going to tell you guys a story about what happened that day. Oh, and I have my diet soda here. And one thing's for sure, I tell my children all the time how much I love them. I hug them all the time. I don't care if they're 50. They're not yet, but if they're 50 and I'm still going, they're going to get hugs, and how much I love them because they mean so much to me. And this day, I could have lost him, but I know for sure that he knew that I loved him because I always told him and my younger son how important they are and how much I love them. I had been at work this day. First, let me backtrack. I'm sorry. My son was 17, and he had a job, and he always had to go on a busy highway. He rode a bike. Not a highway, because there's only 2 lanes, so I shouldn't say highway, a busy road. And I'd always ask him, let me go ahead and take you to work and stuff like that, because I was always worried something would happen to him. And he's like, no, I love to ride my bike. I want to ride my bike. So I let him. And I always made sure I prayed every night that nothing would ever happen to him too. But I would always ask him, you know, please let me take you. He'd actually get mad at me. No, I want to ride my bike. And so, but if I ever saw him alongside the road, I'd stop and make him get in the car and put his bike in the trunk. It wasn't a big, long stretch of road that was busy. He actually would ride on a busier road, but it had more of a bike lane. This one didn't, so it had a very, very small lane in it. But that was actually not a problem on this day, that small road. It was the main road. But my son had a job, and he was at work, and I had just gotten home from work. And my husband asked me to call the car dealer because there was something the matter, something was going on, and we had to get something straightened out. So I called the car dealer, and he was busy. So I left my number and asked for them to have them call me back. Well, within a couple of minutes, my phone rings. And normally, if I don't know the phone number, I don't answer. But I thought, okay, I just called the car dealer. He's probably called me back from his cell phone or something like that, because I didn't recognize the number. And I pick up the phone, and there was a voice on the other end of a lady. And she says to me, he's been totally run over by a truck. And I said, excuse me? And she said, he's been totally run over by a truck. You need to get here right away. And then I knew right away she was speaking of my son. And I asked her, where is he? Where is this at? And she told me, and it was probably about 1.5 miles, 2 miles away from my home at an intersection. She gave me the intersection, and I went there. Well, actually, I was hysterical. I hung up the phone. I yelled at my husband what was going on. I would say I was out of control, hysterical. I was shaking real bad and crying. And my husband says, well, you can't drive. Let me drive you there. And he was just getting ready to go to work, but he took me there. And we go driving up to where my son is. And the road is blocked off. It's 2 lanes going towards my son, a medium, and 2 lanes coming back. And this whole side of the road was blocked off. So my husband pulls into a gas station, and I jump out of the car, and I go running up there, and there's this state police officer there. Or actually, I think it was the sheriff's department at that time. The sheriff's department was there, and the sheriff's department guy stopped me, and he said, you can't come up here. And I said, that's my son. That's my son on the road. And he says, you cannot come up here. And I said, why? I want to see my son. I'm sorry, maybe I'm gonna cry. But he won't let me up there. And he says to me, at that time, his car was blocking the road. There was the fire truck, the ambulance, everybody was there. He says to me, you need to go over to the school. He said he's going to be life flighted. And that just really tore me up, because I didn't know how bad my son was. Because when the lady called, the urgency was that she thought he was going to die. And and he says, if you can remain calm, life flight might allow you to see your son before they take him. So I jumped back into the car. I told my husband, take me over to school, which is probably about like 1 or 2 minutes. It was just like a less than a quarter mile. So I go over to the school. Life flight is not there yet because it had to be dispatched. And I'm waiting there, and then I see the life flight coming, the helicopter coming and landing on the school property. And it still took a while for them to get my son stable enough to get him transported just in the ambulance from there, just a couple minutes down the road. And when they got there, they took him from the ambulance to the helicopter. And in between then, I had asked them, please let me see my son before you take him away. And they said that that they would. So, and I had my younger son with me and my husband too, but when they finally got him situated in the helicopter, they let me come and see him and give him a kiss. And he had to be transported to a trauma hospital, which was about 45 minutes away. So the helicopter takes off, and I get back in a car and we drive. Actually, I rode with my parents at that time. They were pretty upset too. And it was probably one of the longest rides of my whole life because I didn't know if he was going to make it or not. And I'm just so thankful to the lady who called me. He had been in and out of consciousness, and at one point he yelled out my phone number and asked her, please call this number. And she called me, and I was so thankful to her. As a matter of fact, she called me every night for about a week because she said she was so traumatized by what she had seen that she didn't know. But what had happened is my son was off his bike and he was walking across the crosswalk. So the two lanes go this way, the 2 lanes in the medium, but he was walking across with his bike, and a car came from the other side. It was a truck actually, came from the other side, came around and was turning left onto his thing, and the truck hit him dead on. And even she told me too that he held on to the hood of the truck for as long as he could, and he couldn't hold on any longer, so he fell off. And this guy would not stop, and she said that they were literally, the people were literally screaming at him to stop. You know, my son is, you know, 6 foot tall, and he's not the littlest kid, and this guy's hanging on to the hood of your car, and you don't even stop, and he's keep going. Finally, he couldn't hold on anymore, so he let go, and he fell to the front of the truck, and the truck drug him 40 feet. Then after it drug him, it actually drug his bike too. His bike, it drug 20 feet, because I'll tell you how I know that. And then it drug him 40 feet, and then all 4 tires ran over him. So they I know this because on the police report the state police come out and they measure how far it was, because they really thought at first it was possibly attempted murder, because the guy wouldn't stop. He just kept going and run him over, and he's still going, and they had to almost they were screaming at him, and people were hollering, and somebody was following him, and finally he stopped. And so when I finally got to the hospital, the state police met me there, and they had to stay there just in case something was going on. It wasn't attempted murder, but they had to treat it like that because of the situation of what happened. So I was met by the state police, but I couldn't see my son when I got there, which I understood. Because he had to have all these tests done and see what all was going on. Finally, they came and told me that I could come back real quick because he had to go straight into surgery. And he had brush burn from the road, being drugged 40 feet all over his body. He had tire tracks across the body. You could literally see the tire tracks from the tire. His coccyx was broke, his pelvis was broke, his femur was completely snapped. He has a titanium rod there. He had internal bruising and injuries, and he was pretty badly beat up, but he made it. And he does have a lot of trouble with walking and problems like that, because he was totally, you know, messed up. He had to be in the hospital for a few weeks. Actually, I think it was 2 weeks. And then he had to go into a really rehabilitation hospital so that he could learn how to walk again. But I've always told my children how much I love them and how much they mean to me, and I will never stop because I always want them to know. You just never know. If you could lose somebody in a split second just because of somebody being careless. Bless you. This man never called to ask me if my son was dead or alive. He never even called his insurance company to say he hit my son. The bad thing about Florida, this is no fault. Which means I was responsible for all the bills and stuff like that. And the crazy thing is I swear, I don't think I'm exaggerating, but I swear the very next day, but it was probably the day after, I got a bill already for that life flight. And they had said right away, we will put a lien against, because it's county, you know, and they're like, it was like $16,000, and they're like, we will put a lien against your home, we'll do this and that, or if you do not remit, you know, if you don't pay for this. My son wasn't even in the car. He was walking with his bike across a crosswalk, and my son had right away. And all he had to, the only thing the guy had to pay was his insurance. You have a bodily injury, you know, it's usually like 10, 15, 20,000, and that was nothing. Because actually the health insurance company wanted half of that. And I'm not going to say how much it was, but I was just giving an example. But they won part of the money. So my son ended up with nothing, and he has a lifelong injury. I ended up with nothing except for a bunch of bills. I did think about suing, but he didn't have any money. He was just like most of us, poor. But I think what bothered me the worst is that he didn't even care about my son. It was 3 days later that I finally called his insurance company saying, hey, your guy hit my son. Oh, no, we didn't know. He didn't call and tell us. I wrote that lady that called me a special letter and a card telling her how thankful I was. She said she couldn't even sleep for the longest time. She had never seen anything like that before. And I had nightmares for the longest time, especially the first week. I would wake up screaming. That's Nikki, sorry. But I would wake up screaming in the middle of the night. It was just so hard. I love my children so much. I hope I didn't depress anybody with my story. I just thought I'd share that. You guys said you'd like to know more of me. That was one of the worst days of my life. There's been a few of them, but that was one. But he's doing okay now. Like I said, he has a lot of lifetime physical problems from it. I think another thing, and it might sound weird, that really bothered me, it bothered me for the longest time too, is everybody knows how hot it is in Florida. And this was in a hot time of the year, summertime. And in my nightmares, I would be reenacting the whole thing and just imagine him laying on that hot asphalt on the road. It had to have been just torture too, because he was so scraped up all over his body. And I know that the road rash and that hurts so bad, and he had it all over his body. I remember when I'd go to the rehabilitation hospital, he'd be so happy to see me. Because I tried to go every day. I couldn't. I had my other son, and he was younger, and he was in school and had to be picked up and taken. And then I did take some time off from work, but I couldn't take the whole time off. But when I'd go visit him at the rehabilitation hospital, he'd be so happy to see me. He'd come flying up in his wheelchair and just so excited to see me. And it just made me feel good that he was happy to see me. I'm sorry I talked more than 8 this time, but I just wanted to share it with you guys. I feel like I'm talking to friends anyway, so now you get to know something a little bit more about me. It still is, I just realized it still is a little hard to talk about, but you know, you never forget and you never stop hurting from it, but it does get a little bit easier to talk about it. The first few weeks when people talk about it, I literally break down crying, not only from what happened, you know, it was just really hard and exhausting, and mentally I was almost checked out. And one thing I didn't realize also is how much it really affected my younger son. I didn't realize. I mean, I should have, but my mind was, he was safe, and my older son, I was more, you know, worried about him, but I didn't realize how much it did affect my younger son because, you know, it had bothered him a lot, and I didn't realize it. But finally, when I did, you know, we talked about it, and but well, I know this video is dragged on, and I'm sorry I talked maybe too much, but give you another little close-up of my, that was really good, very good. So let me know what you thought about my story in the comment section. Please give me a big thumbs up. And I shall talk to you guys later, and I hope you have a wonderful day or wonderful evening depending on where you are. Thank you very much, guys. Bye-bye.